and then he almost got swallowed, but he grabs onto the neck of the snake, the best thing that could have happened to him in this fight. And then he started squeezing like that one guy who managed to survive NNN while playing Snowbreak Containment Zone. As Kasaka.
Today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out.
So these boys walked into what was supposed to be a D-rank boss room.
How much do we want to find out?
Even though their common sense was telling them not to.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Well, they found out. It's a boss room. It's like the baddest boss room you can stumble into. 1 minute in here and 2 people are already dead. And you know there'll always be that one guy who tries to run away and leave everybody else behind. A guy who can move fast. A guy who can move so fast that even his own legs were left behind. As soon as Jinwoo figured out the rules of the room, they successfully cleared the first commandment by bowing to the god statue, which flashed a terrifying smile and got up its big ass. Guy must not have skipped a single leg day. With the second commandment being to praise the god, this one guy with a lot of knowledge in that area walked up with confidence and gracefully started praising the wrong god and instantly became paste. 4 dead. Everybody started hightailing their way away from this statue, except for this one who couldn't move her legs at all and became toothpaste number 2. 5 dead. Scratch that. 6 dead. Jinwoo figured out what needs to be done after he saw that some of the statues were holding musical instruments rather than weapons. And these statues will start playing music when a person is near them rather than attack that person, as they've already seen. With everyone under a statue except for Sung Jinwoo because he gave his own spot to the girl who's been almost useless the entire time, runs for another statue and almost became toothpaste number 3, but narrowly escaped just to unknowingly fall under the wrong statue and was almost split in 2 with his giant shield, but narrowly escaped with his life again, painfully crawling his way to the other statue while he still could, barely surviving the ordeal. But when all that is said and done, he did lose his leg in return. Now the third commandment is on the way. With the altar being the key item here, it is quite obvious this is for a sacrifice. And the leader of the expedition was immediately singled out but went along to the sacrifice altar willingly. Seeing how there's just 6 of them left, wait a minute. Oh, never mind the tracks. So it turns out that everybody needs to be around the altar for the trial to actually begin, not just a single person, so they all step into the circle, lighting up orange and blue flames as the third commandment commences. All the statues started walking toward them, but only the ones you can't see. It's like the Squid Game of red light, green light. Only they are the robot lady and they can't shoot anyone. So 2 of them got scared and ran out the room and actually succeeded in doing so. But for each person that leaves, the door closes more. With just 4 of them left now, if one more person leaves, it'll create a blind spot in watching the statues to stop them from advancing, meaning everyone else left behind will most likely die. But I thought you were supposed to be the robot lady. Or is this supposed to be Little Nightmares? 5 Nights at Freddy's maybe? Yeah, that make a lot more sense. After a heartfelt speech about his family, one more man left. Now the statues are coming, but the leader Song, being the proper adult, tells Joo-hee to take Sung Jinwoo and escape, so he will be the only one who dies at the altar. But Joo-hee, experiencing magic deficiency, couldn't even move her legs, and just like that, the tables flipped. Rather than her carrying Sung Jinwoo out of the room because of his lack of a leg, the little Sung will now have to carry her out of the room because of her lack of 2 legs, which Jinwoo strongly asks of him, and he will be the only one left behind. After much disagreements that resulted in Joo-hee being knocked out, they both escaped, leaving Sung Jinwoo alone, and the attack begins. He's powerless to even try to defend. Over and over he is tossed around with his sorrowful voice in the background. The torture wasn't ending, but when it finally does, on top of the altar, a huge sword is raised up. With his tearfully blood-soaked eyes, all he can do is watch that huge sword as it comes swinging right down at him. And with that, Sung Jinwoo has survived his first ordeal, and 2 hunters immediately came in to check on him. Remember purple hair guy? He'll come up later. They speculate that he might have undergone a double awakening, which is a rare event for hunters to receive a higher rank from their already existing rank, because hunters' ranks do not change after awakening. So if you awakened as E rank, tough shit, you're gonna be E rank for the rest of your miserable life. And Jinwoo was disappointed to discover that he was still E rank. and also wondering why nobody asked about the literal status window hanging above their heads. And on this window there are daily tasks to fulfill. I guess doing your dailies exist anyway. And these dailies are: why didn't all your hair fall off? And an appropriate punishment will follow if he fails any of them. And he completely ignores that, a decision he's about to regret. And his sister Gina came to visit him for a bit. When she left, Sungi was outside the room. Remember her? She'll come up later. At night, when the time hits 12 AM, he is snatched away from his hospital and finds himself in the desert landscape. With giant monster centipedes all over the desert, he must survive 4 hours against them. So he ran, and ran, and ran, and kept running all through the 4-hour time limit. You should have ran your 10k, man. And by running, he survives to see another day. He's learned his lesson, so you bet he's not gonna be skipping his dailies again. As reward, he receives a key to a dungeon, an exclusive dungeon designed for him. But first, he grinds. Woohoo! Okay, he's ready now. Using that reward key, he opens a door out of thin air into the custom dungeon. As soon as he goes in, the door shuts behind him. Now the only way to leave is to unalive the boss or use a teleportation crystal, and he has no idea what that even is. So a man who could not beat a goblin must now clear a dungeon alone. Not long after, 3 goblins attack him. With his amateurish movement, he manages to fight them all and win. For the first time in his life, he managed to win a fight. A victory that is short-lived as a wolf monster jumps into the fray. Seeing this thing, bro's legs started to shake. He's being traumatized. The Lycanwolf attacks, causing him to discover his newfound agility. With a punch, he sends the wolf back, but punches won't work forever, so he runs. And remember that he had an inventory with a starter weapon inside of it. He takes it up and shears the Lycan in 2, leveling up for the first time, healing his injuries. 2 more Lycans come, but now the sword is stuck in the ground for swinging it too hard. He manages to get it out and attack in time, which didn't work. Then he kicks the wolf and continued the attack, slicing through its head, while the other wolf cowered behind and ultimately ran. With the battle over, it's now giving him more detailed understanding of how this system works, including receiving and selling items to the shop from defeated enemies, without needing to take the item to a physical store. That's not how a video game works. After contemplating his options, the Lycan wolf returns, with friends. Rather than running away, he fights with determination to grow stronger, striking down every wolf one after the other and obtaining the title of Wolf Slayer, granting him a 40% increase in all abilities against animal-type monsters. That damn bear wouldn't want me to have this skill in Weathering Waves. He receives several new items, several new levels, and surprisingly a teleportation stone. After much deep thinking and consideration, he decides to keep pushing forward for now. Elsewhere, a dungeon break occurs. Jinwoo continues to fight inside the dungeon with his sword approaching the breaking point, and now he understands what the color of the monster's name mean, with white meaning they are weaker than, orange meaning they are comparable to Sung Jinwoo, and red means that they are stronger than him. The Lycans that were red before are now white. Upon thinking of his options again, he heads down to the lower floor and immediately took a hit, snapping the already beaten up sword. It's the boss. And to my surprise, the boss's name is not red, but orange. The king of the swamp, Blue Venom Fang Kasaka. The snake attacks. He does the Ichigo vs Grimjaw move but didn't even leave a scratch in the snake's armored skills. The snake loops around and he's not fast enough to keep from being hit as he's pushed into the river, and Bailey got out of the way of the snake and immediately got smacked again. The snake is fast and Kasaka tries to drop a freaking train on him. The fight continues and he's not faring well. He gets smacked around again and again and again. Guy's not catching a break, but he's also not gonna stop. Compared to that thing, this one is child's play. He jumps on top of the huge ass snake, tried to attack from above but he's still not doing any damage, and then he almost got swallowed, but he grabs onto the neck of the snake, the best thing that could have happened to him in this fight. And then he started squeezing like that one guy who managed to survive NNN while playing Snowbreak Containment Zone, as Kasaka was thrashing around the subway. But this guy is not going to give up. He was grabbing onto that neck so hard, he was crushing its scales, spilling blood everywhere. Look at this animation, woo! Amazing. And finally, Kasaka was felled.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
He can't help but marvel at his accomplishment. For his reward, he receives the poison blade Kasaka's Venom Fang dagger and a pouch basically full of poison. This will come up in a part 2 of this video. With that, the dungeon comes to a close. Right after stepping out of the subway, a soldier informs him that they've been a dungeon break. Using his improved perception, he got a better understanding of the situation. The hunters against the one remaining monster, the boss, were not doing well, as they mostly consist of E ranks and some D ranks, with one B rank, Joo-hee, who is still traumatized from the previous experience that she's still useless. This is just a D rank boss, far weaker than Kasaka. So Jinwoo took his broken blade and threw it so hard it completely smashed through the golem's defense, opening up a path to defeat it, leaving the hunter up front to wonder if a high level hunter was just here. But Jinwoo, who had already left with his ripped arms, assumed the boss was already weakened when he attacked it, and then he left the scene while being seen by Joo-hee. Afterwards, my guy is doing his dailies in the hospital, attracting the attention of the maids, nurses, same thing. Right after leaving the hospital, the guy signs up for another raid. That rent won't pay itself. He leaves home, completing his 10-kilometer run on his way to the gate, but didn't get a chance to claim his today's reward, something that'll end up saving his life. This marks his first participation in a C-rank gate, but not as one of the fighters, but as a worker. It's here that he meets Jinwoo for the first time. Inside the dungeon, the hunters fight against a group of giant ants. After the battle is over, Jinwoo started growing suspicious of the group. The deeper they head into the dungeon, the more suspicious he grows of them, with their lack of numbers being a huge reason why. As they explored the dungeon looking for the boss, they came across an entire open space completely filled with mana crystals, probably equivalent to 1 billion yen, or $6.3 million for you Americans out there. But there's a problem. This happened to be the very same room the boss is in, but killing the boss will close the dungeon and the crystals will disappear.
I don't like where this is going.
So the strike team left under the pretense of gathering excavation tools, with Jinho and Jinwoo left behind. But Jinwoo already knew what they were up to, because a strike team that has tackled many C-rank dungeons before will not have just 6 members. His instincts proved correct when they sealed the boss room, leaving the 2 of them trapped inside, as sacrifices to the boss, to give themselves the chance to mine the crystals after the boss goes back to sleep on a stomach full of Jinwoo and Jinho's, or gets so angry it chases them through the tunnels, leaving the room, which should not be too long because the boss just woke up from that loud noise. You bet your ass I'm gonna be angry after being slapped awake. This thing stares them down with a terrifying roar, a spider that roars. Just that alone is enough to tell me to start looking for an exit, but not Jinwoo. This guy has taken a beating from things way worse, but he can still tell this guy is worse than the golem or even Kasaka. Can he kill this boss as a level 18? There's one way to find out. They rush at each other and Jinwoo quickly realizes the spider exoskeleton is stronger than Kasaka's armored skills. His performance shocks Jinho for an E rank, making him assume Jinwoo is a false ranker, someone who lies about their rank to take advantage of other hunters. Not even murder is beyond them. Guy is starting to think his time in the sun is coming to an end. Meanwhile, Jinwoo can't do any real damage to the spider, and his fatigue level is rising, decreasing his speed slower and slower. When you're caught in a deathmatch, that is something you don't want. He needs to kill this thing, and he needs to kill this thing fast, while he can still move faster than it, and the way to accomplish that is to use Kasaka's blade poison and drain effect on the spider's eyes, but it surprisingly spills out acid from its mouth. This 8-legged freak is even worse than we thought. To compensate for this growing threat, Jinwoo uses his new skill Dash that increases his speed by 30%, does a wild maneuver and successfully applies the paralysis debuff, but it gets cancelled, and the spider boss became even more relentless, trying to stab this guy like a human-sized kebab, and Jinho is barely able to process what is even happening. Song tries to go in and score another goal, but hit 70% fatigue level and got smacked off the spider like when you finally see that mosquito. But before the spider could complete its devastating serious slap, Guy remembered he hadn't claimed his Genshin Impact daily rewards, so he wheeled himself out of the ground and ripped out his iPhone 16 Pro Max real quick. But before the spider could complete its devastating serious slap, Guy remembered he hadn't claimed his daily rewards from training today. One such reward was full recovery, which ultimately saved him from a really bad trip to the skewer stick. Having fully recovered, he aimed directly for the spider's boss's eyes this time, stabbing that dagger right into the eye, and again and again and again and again. That's gonna be one nasty case of black eye. Oh, never mind, the thing is dead. Meanwhile, Jinho is just at one corner wondering what the heck did I just witness. Guy is convinced his life is hanging by a thread and starts doing work for free. Just then, the strike team returns through one of the holes and are superficially convinced that he killed the boss because of his fancy gear, which might have been better than they all thought, without even looking at Jinwoo. So they offered him a deal to kill Jinwoo and share the rewards with them, or die alongside him, because the reason their strike team is incomplete is because they always use extras to fill in the empty spots. Let them die and keep everything for themselves, which, as dreadful as it sounds, is actually how real people would do these things. But he chose to side with Jinwoo instead. I mean, after seeing what he just did, who wouldn't? Now the strike team switches to bloodlust mode, and because of that, an urgent request from the system comes in at Jinwoo, saying 6 people are after his life, he must unalive them all or face a death penalty. This new reward shocks him and he got blindsided as a result. Jinwoo, after remembering what kind of world he lives in, makes up his mind. Use your demons, as they say. He walks right up to them, saying stuff like, if you're gonna be a hunter, you must be prepared to be hunted. They were all just like, what in the hell is this weak ass trying to say? Then this one guy walks up with confidence, put his hands over his shoulder, rambling about some shit. And then...
Jesus Christ!
One down. Everybody else was just like, Junte, no! What just happened? I can't believe this. Junte was a D rank. Wait a second. That dumbass was D rank and he was talking all that shit about E ranks being weak. Bastard, you were D rank. You are 90% of the problem. Now everybody gets serious about this. They all attack, so he blocks this guy's bullets, dodges this one's sword and stabs him in the back of the neck, pulls out the dagger and stabs this idiot jumping in, and the effects of the blade activates, brutalizing their asses. 3 down. He moves in, putting this guy down before he even knew what hit him. Aren't you supposed to be a shooter? It happens. The magician tried to blindside him again, but that trick won't work a second time. 5 down. All that's left now is the leader Hwang Dong-soo, who uses his reinforcement skill to toughen his skin like steel to stop himself from being stabbed by Jinwoo's Kasaka Venom Fang Dagger. He's kitted out, guys on steroids. He rushes in but completely underestimates just how fast Jinwoo is.
You're impressive, but I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you.
This is gonna come.
In an instant, the fight is over. All that's left to do now is to start begging for his life. So according to Jinwoo, you tried to kill me 3 times and now you want mercy from me? Ichigo gets knocked away and comes right back in a Goku Kaioken fashion, and Vegeta did the same. But Ichigo gets overpowered and knocked to the ground. Beautiful fall animation, by the way. Hey, watch this video right now of how Yuahaba humiliated the Soul Society in Bleach. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around for part 2 covering the second half of Solo Leveling Season 1. I make my exit.